Hi, this is StrategyCast, where smart marketers and bold business thinkers share the plays behind brand breakthroughs. I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avocet Communications. If your marketing isn't tied to business objectives, it's not a strategy, it's noise. Today, Wrike CMO Christine Royston reveals how to align every campaign with the company's bottom line. You'll get her planning framework, her 3 business goals marketing should lead, and the mindset shift that makes you indispensable in the C-suite. Welcome to the show.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
How you doing today, Christine?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
I tell you, I am so excited to chat today because you're this major CMO with this major company, which we, by the way, are customers with, Wrike, one of the greatest software tools we have in our tech stack. Tell us a little bit about the company and a little bit about your journey that led you there.
Sure. And I am very happy to hear those words. Wrike is an intelligent work management platform. So, if you think about it, it's a place where anybody can build, connect, automate, and scale their workflows. And if you think about it, there's really this versatility, this flexibility, this scalability that really allows you to create whatever you need to get work done. We have customers around the globe, and we really love seeing some of the amazing work that they do. We always say, we want Wrike to help you do the best work of your life. In terms of my journey to get here, I've spent my entire career in B2B tech, first on sales side, then on the marketing side. And my past couple companies, after being at some bigger companies, have been in sort of this mid-size growth opportunity companies. And when the opportunity popped up at Wrike, I was super excited about it. One, because of sort of the passion and the history of the company. They're so customer focused, and everyone I talked to, I could hear that come through. And then I think the second piece was, as a marketer, looking at a tool like Wrike that could help anywhere in any industry, in any function, that is a real marketing challenge. How do you think about really telling the stories? How do you think about customizing your messaging so that when you are thinking about purchasing a tool like this, you can see the specific benefit it might have for you as a marketer or as a manufacturing company. So just definitely a really interesting opportunity. I've been here for about 1.5 years now.
That's fantastic. I think you and any CMO and marketing team at a software company has truly one of the most difficult points of differentiation to make in the industry, because there's so many different pieces of software that don't do so many different things. And quite frankly, there's a lot of noise out there regarding it. And we looked at many, many different tools before deciding on Wrike. And once you get going, you cannot stop. You cannot go back. And one of the things that I think is most frustrating when onboarding a software is just that, the onboarding of it. And our experience with onboarding was so seamless compared to some of the other systems that position themselves as easy to install, easy to, execute on. And so I just have to give you kudos there, because that is a point of friction that many, many companies experience day in and day out.
I am glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's great. One of the things that I loved about our pre-show discussion is that you talked a lot about the mindset shift from marketing expert to business leader. And I love that. It's something that I think is very, very important and really ties into a lot of what we're talking about with business objectives and really understanding those first. what shaped your view that marketers must lead with the business objectives first?
Sure. So I think probably two things. So one, as a marketer, I grew up in generation, revenue focused marketing roles. And in those types of roles, you have to be focused on the business objective. You are trying to grow the company. And so you need to look at how is the company, thinking that they need to grow. I think the second piece, and this is by no means, a requirement for anyone to be a leader, but, I did get a sort of a general business education with my MBA. And so I was able to see how all the pieces of business connect. What are some of the requirements you need from a finance perspective, from a product perspective, from a strategy perspective? So it's super foundational, but I think you can get that in any experience you have by just being curious, asking questions. Talk to the finance team, ask them what's important. Talk to the sales team, ask them what's important. So you understand how the different pieces connect to create a strategy.
We've talked a lot on the show, and I believe that the wrong business goal or objective can really fail marketing. We've talked a lot about that on the show. And I think for our younger listeners today to be able to recognize that revenue goal or that customer acquisition goal or the clip rate that, the board is expecting sometimes is just overshot. So as you're developing and thinking through the objectives that really tie back into that business objective, the marketing objectives that tie back to the business objective, what advice do you have for our younger listeners on how they can spot maybe a sign that the objective coming down from the board may not be something that marketing can really affect positively?
I think it probably comes back to asking the questions, what are the asking their leader, what are the expectations of how marketing will drive this? How will success be measured? What type of resourcing do we think we're going to need that either we've got to shift from somewhere else or we have to figure out how we secure? I think in the end, we have to make sure we're setting the company up for success. And if people who are really close to the activity driving execution flag, hey, this is a great idea, but I'm missing this, or, we have heard some feedback from customers that might lead us in a different direction. I am a fan of organizations like Wrike's where it is not tops down. We are looking for feedback. We want to make sure that people feel like it's an open environment to ask questions and give feedback. And we use that as part of our planning process. And then what we want to do is make sure we are all aligned and we agree and we commit to the plan that we have built out. But we want to make sure that we're taking the time to kind of give people the context of why is this part of our strategy? Why is this something that we wanted to focus on? Why do we think it's important to the company? Because I think a lot of times just having that context helps people feel a little bit more comfortable to say, like, this is going to be a stretch, but I am all in and I'm excited about this challenge.
Yeah. And I think that context also leads to incredible ideation regarding some of the tactics that we can deploy within the marketing plan itself. How do you translate those company-wide goals into the actionable marketing plans?
Sure. So, when I kind of step out of those executive leadership meetings where we're talking about that overall company strategy, the first thing I do is I want to loop in my leadership team. Even if we're in process, I want to loop them into where we're at because they can often give me feedback I can take back to the next executive planning session. But I want to make sure, number one, they understand the context, the why. Why are we thinking about these strategies? What are the expectations that we're looking for from marketing? And then they are sort of flagging, okay, what are the changes we might need to make? What are the things that we might need to stop doing and start doing? So I really want them to, again, not feel like, hey, this is tops down and I'm being told exactly what to do. I'm being told the broader plan. And now Christine is relying on me as the expert in XYZ function to figure out, hey, how are we going to get there as a marketing leadership team?
How long, from your point of view, once you have the business objectives agreed on, should a marketing plan take to write and go through the approval process before execution?
That's a good question. And it's been different at every company I've been at. I think when you're talking about an annual plan and you're looking at, potential big swing changes or, shifts in priorities, or even, additions to say, hey, we have a 3-year strategy and this year we are doing this one thing a little bit different to hit this 3-year strategic goal. I do think you need to give yourself some time. So we normally, if I think about, just the past couple companies I've been at, I would say because we operate on a fiscal year end, or on a calendar year end for our fiscal, we kind of look at Q4 as our planning period.
Right.
We
Yeah.
know the executive team is going to be, early in the quarter, starting to get into the details. And I want to bring my teams along. And so I'll normally start discussions in parallel with my leadership team to say, all right, here are the things we're thinking about, not set in stone. Don't start to plan campaigns yet, but start to think about how this is going to impact your team, your strategies. So I would say for a big annual plan, it ends up taking, a quarter. And that's also because you're typically trying to close the biggest quarter of the year at the same time, or that you are trying to also plan the next year.
And negotiate those pre-buys as well.
Yes, exactly. And then I think it's sort of an ongoing iterative process. We end up doing kind of a quarterly review where we look back on what's working, what's not, make any adjustments. We also do a monthly check-in. So we have more frequent check-ins and opportunities to kind of readjust and realign throughout the year. But the annual plan, you want to make sure that you're being thorough, you're doing all of the analysis, pulling all the data you need to make sure that you're set up for success.
Yeah, I agree. And it does take time, and lots of iterations, and negotiation as well.
Yes,
From a
definitely.
resource standpoint, from a budget standpoint, a timing standpoint, all of that. There are a lot of layers to it. So you were talking about translating the company-wide goals to those actionable marketing plans. How does this mindset influence your structure and the team, and really how you do allocate those resources?
So, certainly when I start to think about it early as I'm talking to our executive team about big bets we want to double down on, new things we want to try. And I start to think through, do we need to look at, expanding a function that's going to have a bigger impact on this strategy? Do we need to hire a new skill set because we simply haven't had someone that is an expert in this area, and we need to bring somebody in who's an expert and can get us up to execution quickly? Also, is there a new technology that we need to think about? Is there something that we need to invest in to automate, to give the teams more time to be creative and to be strategic? And then I also take a look at, do we need to upskill, certain teams or the team overall to be able to drive the marketing objectives?
Right.
If it's a big shift, then certainly I want them to be enabled along with our customer facing teams in terms of how do you talk about the product or how do you talk to this audience?
Yeah.
And I think, in a bigger company, as you start to have a bigger product suite or solution suite to sell, you also sort of look at, do I need to align my teams in a different way? Maybe it isn't entirely by function, but you start to say, we're really focused on going after this audience or this specific solution. Do I need to create a virtual pod to say, this is the dedicated team that's going to drive growth from this particular industry? So I also start to think about that. And then, certainly want to bring my teams into it. Again, here it is not the tops down, but it is initial ideas. Team, what do you think? How do we think about making sure we've got the right resourcing and investments that we need?
That's great. You mentioned tech, and we can't get through a show without speaking about AI. And this is a very, very broad question.
Yes.
And I'm just going to let you dive into what comes to your mind first. But how are you using AI as a resource, either through planning or implementation, creative development, measurement, whatever area it might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it in a couple different ways. So one is the impact AI is having on marketing overall and how we typically run our business. So, it is changing the way people find information. It's changing the way they discover solutions like ours. And so our brand becomes even more important. We have to make sure that our brand is not only visible and strongly defined on our website, but how do we make sure we're getting out there and we're in places where people are going for information? Because we know that if people are using Gen AI for search, they might not end up at our website. They might end up somewhere else. And we want to make sure we've got the right message out there and we are there.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, brand investment is going to have even more important returns. It's always been super important to any marketing strategy, but I think it is definitely something that we want to make sure that we're investing in. I'd say a second way I look at it is, what is it from a technology investment on our side that we need to think about to further enhance and streamline our own workflows? So what are the third-party vendors we're currently using that are evolving their own AI strategy? What new, AI native companies do we need to think about investing in, because they're going to be able to give us unique capabilities that free up the team's time? And then the third piece is really also, how do we maximize our own use of Wrike? We use Wrike for everything, and it is something that it is something that, as we launch innovation into the market as a company, I want my team to be the first team who is thinking about, how do I use this? How does it improve my workflow? How does it help me be more efficient and deliver, better campaigns, better results for the company?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And listeners, we are very, very lucky today because Christine is going to share with us her own framework that she utilizes to create marketing alignment. So why don't you walk us through, Christine, the planning framework, and really, if you'd also think through, there's so many cross-functional teams. We've been talking about it since the get-go of our conversation today, how these frameworks really create more effectiveness between those teams.
Sure. So I'll walk through the framework first, and then I can try to touch on the cross-functional
That'd be great. Yeah.
pieces along the way. But definitely, we can dive into it after I walk through it. So I think, if I think about the framework, I always start with process and workflows. So what is that ongoing process review? How can you uncover where delays are happening in your workflows? How can you look at where duplicate work might be happening? Where is it that things are really slowing down? And this is really about, what's working, what's not, what's too complicated, how much time and energy are teams spending on things. So I think you always have to start with process.
Right.
You should continually be looking at your overall process. And I think in this case, the next step in the planning framework is really around unifying your workflows. So how are teams connected? How are tools connected? How do you remove the silos and make sure that the cross-functional marketing teams, as well as our stakeholders, are all moving toward the same goal?
Right.
And so this is where we kind of evolve what happened in the first step, where we identify some things that might need to change. We look and we say, how do we adjust that? How do we improve that for everybody? Whether it is within the marketing team thinking about launching a campaign or launching a new product, and we have to think about, how does product get involved in this? How does the sales team get involved in this? The enablement team get involved with this?
And which really goes back to that first point on process too, because if you're planning toward the goal, it's at that first stage that you can decide on what processes might need to be written in order for everything to be effective as well.
Right. Yep. Definitely. And this is where we also start to add in some of those specific objectives to say, all right, if we're looking at our workflows and one of our key objectives is to launch, a new product line, do we have the right process set up in the tool? Is everybody aligned that this is going to be a priority? So if you get assigned a task to do something, you're not wondering, well, do I do this or do I do that? Because it's all bubbled up to the corporate objective. So that alignment is really key in this place.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's interesting with that, I think, is, let's just stay on a new product launch for a minute. Quite often what happens with an existing company who has an incredible, brand share is they forget about product or problem market fit. So they go directly to product market fit, not necessarily thinking about, okay, what do we need to retrench in? What do we need to retrain on? What do we need to find out? What's the voice of the customer regarding this specific module? And a lot of that upfront research is lost or forgotten, and they go to launch and they don't have the insight and intel that they needed to really be successful. So we've seen that happen with a lot of brands, a lot of very established brands, where that piece just, really sets the entire process off incorrectly.
And I think especially important in a time like we're in today where, a new technology comes in and just upends everything.
Yeah.
And our customers are trying to figure out, how do they leverage AI? How do they manage the benefits of AI? And so we have to make sure that we're constantly thinking about the change that they're going through whenever you do have new technology like this happening.
Yeah, that's great. The third one is activating agility, which I love.
Yes. So this is one where we really want to make sure that we are streamlining the processes and that we're making things easier, faster. This is really where we're also incorporating a lot of AI to say, last year somebody had to do this manually. How is it that we can automate that so this person can actually free up time and ideate more and can get more creative time, more focused time? And I think this is, go ahead.
I want to just stay on that point for a minute, because there are a lot of marketing teams building out new team members that are specifically an AI team member, which really does open up the human ideation, I think, for individuals in such a bigger way. Have you explored any of that yet with your team?
Just to clarify, are you talking about in terms of AI specific people roles on the team, or agents?
Taking on a role, like a specific, an example might be a content creator for Facebook. So that let's call her Kim. Kim is an AI team member, and she writes all the Facebook posts based on a very, very customized chat that has been developed. And yes, we put the criteria in there regarding what the ideas are, and then she's able to write it in a matter of minutes versus, versus moments.
We are definitely moving in that direction. So, as we think about agentic AI and what it's going to be able to do for the team, I know I've talked to a lot of my peers and seen some articles about how this is a time where people are going to start managing not only potentially employees but also agents, and those are part of your team. They get specific job functions done.
Exactly.
And it allows the humans to do other things. And so it is something that we're in the process of rolling out. I think that it's going to be super exciting, and also a lot of change management for the teams to think about. Okay, how do I actually give all this work to an AI team member?
Yeah. How do I let go?
Right. And there always has to be the human in the loop. There always has to be AI plus a human who's
do it without it.
Thinking through, how do we align to the corporate strategy? Is this aligned to our brand? Do the double check before anything would go out the door that just doesn't feel like your own brand.
Yeah, I think that's great. Before we move on, did you have anything else on Activate Agility?
I think it is, to me, it is one of the things that as, you get bigger as a company, it can be easy to all of a sudden be in a place where you think, why does it take so long to get something done? And if you think about this as just part of your planning process, you're going to be constantly evaluating that. So you're staying nimble, you're able to adjust to market trends, to customer needs.
Right. That's great. Thank you. And finally, measure what matters.
Yes. So this, I'm very focused on this, and I'm sure my team members would tell you, all of our one-on-ones talk about metrics. So I want to make sure that we're being really clear in terms of, for the strategies we're driving, the programs we're creating, campaigns, what are the metrics we're going to use to measure success? And those can be business metrics. It could be driving a certain amount of bookings, driving adoption, but also efficiency metrics. So if we're creating these initiatives, can we do it faster? Can we we do it with the help of AI. And so we have less human hours in the day on it, and we're able to get more done because of that. And certainly we set annual, quarterly, monthly goals that we review, quite openly with our board, our executive team. And we want to make sure that teams are keeping those metrics in mind as they're thinking about what they're going to actually execute, because that will inform the things that they're focused on to drive specific numbers or specific outcomes.
Do you have a litmus test? It is so easy, especially with creatives and strategic ideation and any marketing team, because we get so excited about things that are moving and grooving in front of us, and we can veer off course from time to time. Do you have a litmus test as a part of making sure that you're aligned to the company strategy throughout this process that helps people get back on track if needed? And quite frankly, sometimes those the fork in the road, it can be a very positive thing as well. But nonetheless, I think I see a lot of teams getting off focus and, for a month or two, really impacting what could have been.
So, as we think about our sort of planning process, we do go through an approval process within the team where, for certain big investments, big initiatives, those are things that my leadership team will want to review. Things that are maybe run rate, kind of evergreen, that marketing leader will review within their team. And I would say, two of the questions I want us to always be asking is, for this project or initiative, what company objective or what marketing objective does it roll up to?
Good.
And I do like to leave time for experimentation for teams to try new things. I'm really focused on that, and making sure I'm being clear that I want people to try things, but it needs to be in an effort to drive a company strategy, not just because it's something that looks sort of cool and I want to try it myself.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first one. And then how will you measure success? There has to be a way to measure success, and it doesn't always have to be, a revenue number, but how are you going to know, was this successful or not? What target did you set? And then did we actually get there?
Yeah, I love that. It's fantastic. And just that you've built that culture within your team. Experimentation seems like a very negative word in the situation, because we do want it a bit more quantifiable, than that. But nonetheless, I think it's fantastic. It's a great cultural move. Now that we've got the framework down, let's zoom in on some business objectives that your team is driving.
Sure.
Let's start with objective number one, which is, what is it and how is marketing owning and enabling it?
Yes. So I'm going to start with overall business growth. What are our company's financial targets? And for any company, it could be specific bookings growth, it could be retention. Not surprising, marketing should always be really driving and supporting growth of the company. And so as a marketing team, we always have targets to deliver specific growth on bookings. And those are things that we say we can deliver this much. We build programs to be able to show how marketing is driving that. But we're also looking at how do we influence all revenue. So those investments in brands should influence revenue of the entire company. The messaging and positioning we're creating and partnering with our sales and customer facing teams on, they should be able to use that to drive growth with new customers, existing customers. So we want to make sure that we have some specific targets for things that we can directly measure and attribute, but really, making sure we're taking the step back and saying we just need to drive growth for the company, and aligning our initiatives there. I think this is something my team has, long been focused on. And so we do want to make sure that we're able to communicate that back to the business. Certainly finance as a key partner, they want to understand how the investments that we're making in marketing are actually contributing back to growth. So this is one that I feel lucky to be in a team that is so focused on the business and the metrics and the numbers.
I think it's fantastic. There's such a big discussion happening right now surrounding the weight of brand, regarding enablement. And I've seen a lot of brands wax and wane through that based on market conditions, if what a competitor might be doing, some inroads that they might be making. But do you have a rule of thumb regarding the mix of brand versus enablement that you would typically include in a plan?
Oh, I don't have a sort of a standard number that I look at. I find it's unique company by company, sort of, where they are in their own maturity, where they are in terms of growth expectations. But it is something that I like to be really transparent with, my finance team, my board, my CEO. We want to take this percentage of money or this, amount of money and invest it in brand. And so we're not going to be able to measure it in the traditional way that we do a dollar of paid
Sometime.
search.
Yep.
But what we will do is set targets on how we will measure the investment, and we'll come back and report on those, and we'll adjust based on those.
Yeah.
One of the things that that I've done at a couple companies is sort of look at where do you do really targeted brand investment, so you can actually do sort of the A/B test and say, we did it in this country, we did it with this market, and this is the lift we saw over the next 3 to 6 months, and compare it to places where you didn't make that brand investment. And I think that's where you can get a little creative in terms of if you do need to tie it back to the numbers to prove out that future investment. That's one way to do it.
That is brilliant. I love it. Objective number 2, how does it differ and what does success look like?
Sure. So second objective is another one that I find at a lot of growing companies, which is driving new sources of growth, driving new sources of revenue. And for us, we acquired a company earlier this year, Klaxoon, to help us get into the visual collaboration space. So a way to bring unstructured brainstorming data into more of a structured Wrike project management environment.
Yeah.
And so, as a company, we needed to look at how do we maximize that investment that we made? How do we make the market aware? How do we drive increasing revenue from having that as an additional capability on our platform? And so we had a whole host of objectives around this one. And I would say it was almost sort of a complete full funnel type of marketing initiative. If I think of, we had to make people aware in the market that we had acquired this company. We had to explain, why did we do it? We had to also explain to the acquiring company's customers, why did we do it? And so it was really nice to kind of think about that full funnel piece of driving the awareness. Then how are you educating people on the benefit of the combined companies? And then down to how are we actually driving revenue from it? So this was
a lot of moving parts there.
Yes,
for sure.
Definitely, but always fun.
It really is. And then objective number 3, how does it reflect Wrike's broader direction?
So, this one is going to be AI related. Anytime there's new innovation in the market, marketing has to be front and center to lead the business. And so, as we think about our own AI initiatives, and we've been investing in AI for years, and we continue to do that. And we want to make sure that we're driving that awareness, that people know that, while we've been around for nearly 20 years, we are staying ahead of the curve. We are investing in this to make our customers successful. And so, here it is, really multiple roles that marketing has to play. One is making sure we're highlighting that innovation. We're making sure people are aware of it. We're driving revenue from it. We're integrating it into our campaigns as part of our ongoing messaging. We also want to make sure we're highlighting our customer stories and being able to show how they're being successful, how they're improving their workflows with AI.
That in itself, we believe, is one of the best sales tools out there, are those customer success stories.
Definitely. And then, we also want to make sure we're sharing our point of view as Wrike in terms of, where is the future of work going? How is work going to get done now that AI is going to be sort of partnered with humans in order to get work done? And so we want to make sure we're kind of sharing that thought leadership. We're sharing how we're using AI. And marketing is really taking a leading role there in terms of getting that message out and being our own best use case of how Wrike is using AI in our marketing specific workflows.
That's fantastic. So many incredible insights that you're sharing with us today. We've seen now how the strategy really shows up day to day. Let's take a step back and talk about some lessons learned. You've got a great campaign example that you're going to share with us now about a big customer event that you do called Collaborate. And in its 8th year, I understand.
Yes, yes. So we run this every year, and it is really an initiative the entire company rallies around. So, it is where we share thought leadership. It's where we unveil new research. We share the latest innovation from our product teams. And again, we highlight our customers. We want our customers to be helping us tell the story and sharing all the amazing things that they're doing. We're deep into planning. It is coming up on October 8th and 9th.
Any full-time jobs to do this.
Yes, yes. And it truly takes a village. Our product team is building and preparing demos. Our customer facing teams are, helping us to drive not only awareness of the event, but having us, engage with customers who will join us there and share those stories. And then, from an executive support perspective, I need to make sure that our executives can be on stage telling the story, that they're supportive of this as a very large investment of time and resources. And it is one where, because of this cross-company alignment, we know it's a big effort. We know every year, people say it's came sooner than we expected it would. But because of the results that it drives, we continue to see support for it and excitement from our employees, from our customers about it. It is, it generates a great amount of opportunities for us, both in driving new business as well as, convincing people who might be on the fence about buying Wrike that, yep, this is a company I want to partner with, and also drives a lot of customer engagement because we're able to highlight those stories and showcase those stories. So I think, we see the benefits, certainly there's the big bang when the event launches, but we actually see this as an ongoing benefit for us. It helps us create a lot of content that we can reuse, repackage later in the year into early next year. And the results actually continue to deliver over the next couple of quarters. So it's a lot of effort, but it's nice to have that rallying point for the company and know that you're going to have support from so many people to make it a success.
So this is interesting to think through the history of Collaborate. And you've been with the brand for 18 months, so you may not be able to reflect on this completely, but with your business mindset, I'm interested in knowing, with an event like this, and at the time that it was thought through to establish it, was it the business strategy truly leading the event need, or do you think the marketing strategy was able to ladder it back up to the business strategy and achieve many of the different goals and objectives there? One approach.
Sure. So I can't tell you the original genesis of it, but I do think this is one where if our corporate strategy was not about, constantly innovating, if our corporate strategy was not about making our customers successful and sharing thought leadership, sharing research, I think it would be tough to justify having a big event just for the sake of, saying, hey, we did this event. I think that because of the focus on customers, we want to make sure that we're giving people an experience that they can get value out of. And we see it in the engagement during the event. And it's gone through different iterations. It was in person, certainly many years ago. The past couple of years, it has been virtual. We've tried to make sure that we're still providing the same amount of value. This year, we're testing out a couple of small in-person events to kind of see if that's something that we might want to go back to in a bigger perspective. Because I do think there is an appetite for engagement and community. And whenever I see customers at an event talking and sharing ideas, I just think it's so nice to be able to provide that platform to give people the chance to meet people they're not going to run into in any other way and make a new connection and trade best practices. So I do think it is something that is absolutely if the company strategy wasn't focused on that, marketing would never be able to justify that type of investment and all the resources that it takes to pull something together.
Well, I really appreciate that because pulling something like that off is not easy. It involves, an incredible number of man hours, a lot of finesse, a lot of planning, and at the end of the day, you've got, the potential of all your customers in one area at one time.
Mhm.
Talking about how wonderful you are and collaborating and learning and growing, and there's nothing better than that.
Yes.
You've got a lot of control over the narrative, which is a very positive thing. I'd like to wrap today with something that we established at the beginning of the year. We launched a Better At series to help marketers sharpen the everyday skills that make a big difference, things like
Mm.
listening, collaborating, prioritizing communications, that sort of thing. What's one thing you've learned to be better at that's made a measurable difference in how you lead, work, and show up in your role?
I would summarize it as making space.
Mm.
So it is very easy for me, and I know for many of us, for our calendars to just get full of back-to-back meetings. And it's hard to make the space unless you're proactive and you look out a couple weeks and you start to carve off. I need this time block for reading. I need this time block for preparing for this upcoming presentation. So I have made it a habit to just always either look out a couple weeks in my calendar, or when something big comes in, a board meeting, a presentation, an event, I start to do the backwards looking in my calendar and start to just block off things so they don't get booked with meetings. And it's because I want to be intentional with how
Right.
I'm spending my time. I want to make sure I can focus on strategy. I also want to make sure I am making space for learning. There's always something for all of us to
Never
learn.
stop. Yeah.
So, it could be formal learning. It could be listening to webinars or a podcast like this. And I want to make sure I'm also encouraging my teams to do the same. I want them to carve off time and make sure they're continuing to upskill. And then I also want to make sure I am holding space for time with my peers, time with my teams.
Yeah.
That is the most valuable time, is being able to connect and share ideas, bounce ideas off each other, share feedback or coaching for my teams. So it is something that I like to be intentional about. And then whenever I can, I want to make space to spend time with customers.
Yeah.
I learned so much from talking to a customer about not only how they use Wrike, but what's happening in their industry. What am I not seeing because, I'm this particular industry or this particular company, that they can give me more insights that I might not be able to capture otherwise.
Well, I appreciate that so much. Incredible advice and insights there. What is the best way for our audience to get in contact with you, Christine?
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love to trade ideas, share new thought leadership content, learn about new podcasts and webinars that are out there.
Well, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. And if you'd like to get in contact with me, you can reach me on LinkedIn as well, Lori Sartorius Jones. Christine, thank you so much for your appearance on StrategyCast.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.